On today's show, Luka and Kyrie haven't peaked, right?
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Rusty.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Amazing.
Your team every day.
Still can't eat milk.
And welcome to your Locked On to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager at the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show, making Locked On Mavs your first listen today. The best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day on any podcast platform, leave a 5-star review, like the video on YouTube, and comment anything below. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Today, I got one question for every single Maverick on the roster. I'm gonna try to fly through some of these because I think there's something for everybody going into next season. Everybody. Nico Harrison, one of his big things was, how do we get this team to get 10 to 15% better across the board? That's the big question for every single player. So how can Exum get better? Maxi, Najee Marshall, Quinton Grimes. We'll talk about all those. We'll talk about some of the new additions, obviously. Talk about Klay Thompson too. I think there's big questions about him going forward, but I got to start here. Have Luka and Kyrie peaked? A hush fell over the audience. Have they peaked? That's a question that has to be answered, I think, at some point this offseason going into next season is, all right, can they get better? Where can they get better? Of course, if you ask them, if you ask Jason Kidd, if you ask Nico Harrison, if you ask any Mavs fan, they would all say, no, they can get better. Of course they can get better. But how can they get better? How can they get better? Did they peak? And I think that's my big question for Luka is, did he peak? Where does he get better? His shooting last season was incredible until the playoffs. And of course, you'll think about his injuries and all that in the playoffs, and that will be a big, point of contention. Probably a big question too is, can he stay healthy? Another question. I'm giving little bonus questions in this. His shooting last year, though, was a big was an outlier in a way. He got better. 3-point shooting, his free throw shooting. 3-point shooting, shot over 38% in the regular season. That was the best by almost 3 percentage points, which is a big jump. The best he's ever shot. Playing next to Kyrie definitely helped that. The Mavs limiting some possessions here and there. That definitely helped. He got some extra catch and shoot shots. That absolutely helped with him. And his free throw shooting went up 78%. The highest he had shot before that was 75.8. So that went up by almost 3 percentage points. So he went up by 3 percentage points, both 3-point shooting and free throw shooting. Was that an outlier, or is that a new normal for Luka Doncic? If it's a new normal for Luka Doncic and he comes back healthy, then I don't think Luka peaked. Then all of a sudden we could be looking at more. And then his question becomes, what does it take to win a freaking MVP? Right? Like,
I need a recovery beer.
Just thinking about everything he did last season, and he got third. Can the Mavs get more wins and get him there? But for Luka, it's did he peak? But honestly, if the answer is yes, it might be fine. Right? If he peaks, you're talking about a first-team All-NBA player, third in MVP, a guy that took you to the NBA Finals when he was on a bum knee. The peak that you're thinking about, some of the recency bias, we start thinking about, oh no, there's no way Luka peaked, because the last thing that we remember seeing of Luka was either Slovenia. That didn't look like Luka, right? The video just gave me the thumbs up bubble on the screen. That's stupid. Here, I can give you the balloons. Okay. If he peaked in the regular season, I think the Mavs could be okay with that. Get that same like regular season from Luka next year, 70 games, almost 34 points. The counting stats don't all have to be the same, but the efficiency, how he got there, what he gave you in the regular season. Amazing, right? Amazing. That's his word. We'll use it back for him. With Kyrie Irving, what happened in Boston? To me, that's kind of a question. Is that just Boston related? Is it literally only Boston related? Because we did sort of see him get limited in the Thunder series too. Is that a big question they have to answer through the regular season going into the playoffs next season? What happened there? How can the Mavs overcome that? How much pressure does Klay Thompson take off of Kyrie? That's kind of my big question for Kyrie. If you just push past the Boston ones, like, all right, We'll push past that. We'll just say it was, an outlier, an aberration. How much pressure does Klay Thompson take off of Kyrie? Because all of a sudden now Kyrie isn't put in a position where you've got to go on a run. You got to go on this run in the third quarter, fourth quarter, and pull us out of these moments where the Mavericks were either down or they just needed some extra offense or something. And it was on Kyrie to do that, and he came through a lot, and it was awesome to see Kyrie go on those runs and do all that. But should he have to have that pressure on him all the time to be able to do that, especially if he's going to be asked to guard guys a little bit more, and him be healthy for the playoffs too, which he was, thankfully, this season. But with health and Kyrie, that's not something that really goes together all that often. So how much pressure does Klay take off of him? That's a big thing that I'm looking at this season is how much does another scorer that's a guaranteed 15-point per game guy. The Mavs didn't have that last year. Tim Hardaway Jr. was a guaranteed, could score 15 points. He could also score 5 or 2 or 0. But Klay Thompson actually brings a scorer that can bring some consistency. And he won't always be 20 points per game. He won't always be 15 every time. But at least you have somebody else that can make it so that the Mavs offense isn't just Luka and Kyrie do stuff, and then outside of that, I'm interested to see how they open up the playbook for Klay too. That's something I'm definitely interested in. Luka and Kyrie as a duo, though, have they peaked? I don't think so. I think that they showed a lot last year. But if you look at the playoffs, one of the stats that I was tracking all season was, did the Mavericks, the Mavericks star duo, and how they matched up with other star duos, especially on offensive and defensive rating and their net rating. And Luka and Kyrie actually were the third best duo in the playoffs. The number one was really actually surprising to me. Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert had a plus 12.8 net rating. They outscored opponents by almost 13 points per 100 possessions. I think that number is really aided by them crushing the Suns in the first round. They really matched up well against that Suns team and crushed them, because if you look at the bottom there, Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, and I tweeted this out, by the way, too, at Nick Van Exit. You can go look at that. Booker and Durant got outscored by 16 points per 100 possessions. They got crushed in that first round. And so that aids Ant and Gobert's numbers for sure. And then Luka and Kyrie got beat by a lot in the Celtics series, and so that messed up their number a little bit. But Luka and Kyrie having a better net rating than Embiid and Maxi, than even Tatum and Brown. Tatum and Brown were only plus 6 on the net rating side. Jokic and Murray were a minus 2 in their couple series they played. LeBron and AD minus 4. Like, you look, and SGA and Jalen were a plus 7, even though they got beat by the Mavs. But it's pretty balanced if you look compared to the other stars. The Mavs had a 117-point offensive rating against teams in the playoffs when Luka and Kyrie were playing. That's solid. There's only 3 star duos that scored more than that. Their defense was 109.1. Only 4 duos were better defensively than that. And if you just look at this chart and you look at where they were, they played pretty solid. But there's definitely room for growth, and I do not think that they peaked. I think that there's an opportunity for them to be better together, to take the next step together. They went to the finals together. I think that's a thing that brings chemistry even farther. I think that giving them a release valve like a Klay Thompson makes them better. So even if the two of them don't get better themselves, if we don't figure out what happened with Kyrie in Boston, if we don't figure out, or if Luka's shooting was maybe a little bit higher last season than it will be this season, I think that they'll be better in general because of Klay Thompson. I'm putting that pressure on Klay because I think he's going to come and help a lot of that. Maybe even just for the threat of his three-point shooting. I'm excited about that. With Klay, though, there is a huge question for him. Yes, offensively, he's going to help Luka and Kyrie get better. But defensively, is he actually going to hurt the Mavericks? We'll talk about that and more coming up.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, check to see what they have available. They have all kinds of stuff. I was checking Game Time religiously, thinking about if I was going to go to the MLB All-Star game. And at first, I looked at tickets and I was like, man, those were super expensive, ridiculous for a fake baseball game. Why would I do that? And then as I checked, they kept going down. Like Jay Sean checking out the deals that they had at Game Time. So they ended at I think they started at like $400 and then they ended at like $100. And I was like, whoa, that's what you get with Game Time, because you can save up to 60% off buying last minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, all that kind of stuff with flash deals, zone deals. You get the all-in pricing that I love. You can toggle the feature to show you exactly what you're going to pay at the end. Gotta love that. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
That's it. It's me versus the machines. The Matrix is taking over. That's it. They want us to be perfect. Basketball isn't perfect. It's beautiful.
Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day. Appreciate each and every one of you for checking out the show. Luka and Kyrie have not peaked. They can get better, and one of the reasons they can get better is because of Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson's shooting, and the threat of him shooting is going to bring spacing that these guys have not had to operate. He's going to take some pressure off of those guys because he's another guy that can hit a bucket. When Luka throws a crazy pass, it's going to be Klay Thompson in the corner and not oh my God, is Tim Hardaway going to hit this shot? Oh my God, is Derrick Jones Jr. going to hit this shot? And I think that's a real positive for both of them. There's going to be moments where Klay has 25 in a game and we go, okay, Kyrie doesn't have to go off for 30 in the second half in order for the Mavericks to win this game. So I think that's going to help them. But with Klay Thompson, the big question for him, and again, I'm asking one big question about every Maverick. I cheated in the first segment with my own game. I asked multiple questions of Luka and Kyrie. They're multifaceted. They've got multiple things going. For Klay Thompson, though, it is one big question. Where's his defense at now? Klay Thompson has made an all-defensive team in the past. He made one in 2019, so 5 years ago, he made an all-defensive team. He was known as a lockdown defender. He is not that guy anymore. And that's okay. That's going to be okay for the Mavericks, I think. But the question is, where is it? Because if it becomes a liability, or if it becomes oh man, we kind of gotta put Klay on like maybe the second best offensive player and not the best one. Or not he can't guard the ball handlers, and all of a sudden, like, you get a team with, a guy that can, with a guy that can handle the ball and a guy that can, that's bigger. Play the Celtics next year. All right, who's guarding Tatum? Who's guarding Brown? If Klay can't guard either of those guys credibly, then all of a sudden, what do you do? That's the big question for Klay. Where is his defense at now? You guard an Oklahoma City Thunder. Who gets Shea? Does Kyrie still guard Jalen Williams? You get at Cleveland. Who guards Garland? Who guards Mitchell? These are tough. These are tough asks. And at the introductory press conference, one of the things Klay said was, man, I love that I'm here with Najee and Quinton Grimes. These guys, I've battled with them. They're great defenders. And in the past, I've guarded the best player on the other team, and I've done that. But now I'm glad that I don't have to do that as much. And I was like, oh, no. Klay, you might have to do that a little bit more. Like,
still can't leave me open.
You're right. You can't leave you open, but you may have to make sure that the best guard on the other team won't stay open. Because you don't want to ask Kyrie to do that. You don't want to ask Luka to do that, for God's sake. And then is PJ going to be guarding some of the wings? Can Klay guard some of the wings? Is that where we go? Who guards Kevin Durant? Who guards Booker if you go against the Suns? Does PJ guard Durant? All right, then does Klay guard Booker? All of a sudden, you got these questions. And of course, yeah, Najee Marshall and Quinton Grimes will come in and they'll guard some of those guys for sure. We'll talk about those guys. But with Klay, it's like, all right, that's going to be a big indicator as where this Mavericks team can go with Klay. Because all of a sudden, if you're like, all right, Klay can't really guard some of those guys, but we can put in Najee Marshall. Okay, well, that negates some of the progress that you made with adding a three-point shooter like Klay Thompson. Because then you can't play him in those lineups. At least for those lineups. You'll absolutely be able to play him. But will his defense hold him back? Where is it right now? That's what I want to know. That's the big question for Klay. Where's his defense? Where is it right now? Where's it going to be? All right. The other thing about Klay Thompson's defense is that how long does it take him to get used to the scheme? He's been playing with the Golden State Warriors his whole career. Does it take him a little bit to get used to the Maverick scheme? Is the scheme better for him than to just try and lock down on one guy? Is it better to, the Mavs rotate around a bunch, they switch a bunch? Klay mentioned in his introductory press conference, he's excited because he can guard bigger guys, he can guard smaller guys, and he's excited to do some different stuff defensively. Does that help him? Does that give him a little, does he maybe have 2 more years of some really good defense left in him? We'll see. That's a big question for him. For the other 2 guys that were there at his introductory press conference, I'm going to start with Quinton Grimes first. I think I might be higher on Quinton Grimes than anybody else in Mavs media. The question for Quinton Grimes, oh my gosh. Can Quinton Grimes threaten Klay Thompson's starting or closing spot? In December or January, February, can we go and we're on this podcast, me and Slightly, me and Reggie, me and Dana, whoever. Is there going to be a moment where you sit on this podcast and go, should Kid start Grimes instead of Klay? Should Kid be closing with Grimes instead of Klay? And it not be such a hot take? Because I'm really high on him. I think that if he can get back to where he was, not this past season, the year before that, starting for the Knicks, guarding the best player on the other team, he's the answer to, who do we have that can replace Derrick Jones Jr.'s point of attack defense? It's Quinton Grimes. And be a 38% shooter as well. And has been consistently. Spoiler, Najee Marshall's question is going to be, was his three-point shot last season real? He shot 38%, but the years before he shot 31, 33% and all that. And so that's going to be a big question for him. For Quinton Grimes, I don't have that question. I think he's going to be a competent shooter. I think he's going to come in and bring consistent three-point shooting. He could do a little bit extra too. He averaged a couple of assists when he started for the Knicks. And that Knicks team was pretty good. They won 47 games. It was Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, went to the playoffs. I'm interested to see where Quinton Grimes is and if he threatens it. And it doesn't have to be a knock on Klay. It doesn't have to be. It can be Grimes is just, the Mavs are just better when Grimes plays. Think about the Gafford Lively thing. It was not, Lively all of a sudden being like, oh man, they should probably play Lively a lot more than Gafford. Wasn't even a knock on Gafford as much as it was, holy cow, Lively is very good. So can Quinton Grimes threaten Klay's starting closing spot, his minutes basically? And if that happens, then it's either a really good thing or a really bad thing for Klay. But I think with Quinton Grimes, I'm excited to see where he can be, how he can prove to, the Mavericks and Mavericks fans that he can get back to the guy that he was with the Knicks, because he was very good for the Knicks. I'm very high on Quinton Grimes. I like that move a lot. When it came up for Tim Hardaway, I was like, oh, you do that 100 times out of 100. Whatever picks you got to give up. That's just a very good move. He played 9 games in the playoffs for the Knicks. Started 66 out of 71 games, averaged 11 points. 3 rebounds, couple of assists. Guarded the best player on the other team. Shot almost 39% on almost 6 threes a game. That's solid for a playoff team. He was a playoff starter. And that's why I think he's an upgrade over Josh Green, is that we've never seen Josh Green be a competent, consistent playoff level starter. Quinton Grimes was that. Yeah. That's what I'm excited about. Najee Marshall was his three-point shot last season real? Najee Marshall was, a player that his three-point shot was kind of the big question for him. Can he hit a three? Can he credibly knock down a three? He will have to in this Mavs system. Will he be, he shot 35% his first year, went down to 20% his second year, 30% in 2023, and then last year it went up to almost 39%. You go, okay, let's hope we get that Najee Marshall. And he was playing with, not the best playmakers. Zion, Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum. Will playing with a Luka make his three-point shot give him better three-point opportunities, better three-point looks? Absolutely. He's going to get better looks with the Mavs. But he's only taking a couple a game. He's not taking too many. And so, what else can he do to replace what the Mavs lost in Derrick Jones Jr.? That's the other thing that I'm interested with him too. I don't have a lot of questions about Najee Marshall. I'm excited to see how he fits in. He's going to be the hustle guy, the extra stuff guy. I wouldn't be surprised if we're also talking about him. He's got to start instead of Klay at some point, because then all of a sudden, that's a big lineup where if you start Lively, start PJ, start Najee, Luka, Kyrie, that's a big lineup. You're back to the big lineup. Klay is big too. Klay is 6'6". It's a different kind of big though. Coming up, the Mavs role players. PJ Washington, what can he repeat from the playoffs? Derek Lively, what's the ceiling? I think I've got an answer to that one. We'll talk about that and more coming up.
You don't believe you shouldn't be here?
Machines.
I need a recovery beer.
I'm not playing. I'm watching, just like you guys.
All right, let's get into the big questions I have for every single Maverick. This is the rapid fire segment. You ready for this? All right, PJ Washington, is the playoff three-point percentage repeatable? PJ Washington crushed it in the playoffs, shooting the three. Did a great job against the Thunder. Took his three-point shooting to another level. He was even more wide open in the playoffs than he was in the regular season. Shot 31% from three in the regular season, 35% from three in the playoffs. Yes, it went down a little bit. He did not do the best against the Celtics and all that, but he helped them beat the Thunder. That was massive. That was absolutely massive for PJ Washington. Is his three-point shot in the playoffs repeatable? That's my big question for him. He's going to get he's going to get more open shots now than he did last year. Because now it's not, all right, we're a defense. We're playing the Dallas Mavericks. We're not going to leave Luka, check. We're not going to leave Kyrie, check. We're not going to leave this roller in Gafford or Lively, okay? Because they could just dunk at the rim anytime. Luka could throw from any point. So do we leave PJ or do we leave Derrick Jones Jr.? And they were leaving Derrick Jones Jr. every time. He got a bunch of open shots. Now you take that Derrick Jones Jr. spot, you turn that into Klay Thompson.
Still can't leave me open.
Correct. Can't leave him open. So now it's PJ Washington. He's going to get a bunch of threes. And the Mavs have worked on his shot. They've worked on, changing it a little bit and focusing on, how can he be a better corner three-point shooter and all that. He's going to have to do that. And honestly, he shot 35% in the playoffs. Like, it's not even that great. It's average. It's good. It's fine. It's acceptable. Can he be better? Can he become a really good three-point shooter? We've seen that in his career. His first season, his rookie year with the Hornets, he shot 37%. Then that went up to 38.6. And then it went down 36, 34, 32. And he started to trickle down from there. But can he get back to, all right, he's a 38, 39% three-point shooter. You can't leave him open either.
Still can't leave me open.
Hopefully we're saying that about PJ Washington. That'd be awesome. Derek Lively. He's in such a great position. And I'm so excited that we're talking about Derek Lively like this instead of all right, can the Mavs finally get Derek Lively to step into his role? What's the ceiling for Derek Lively? There was the report from Tim McMahon that the Mavs believe Derek Lively can be a defensive anchor a la Kevin Garnett or Joakim Noah. What's the ceiling? Can he get there? First step is avoiding a sophomore slump. We've seen it from guys. Look at Walker Kessler. Walker Kessler's rookie year, everybody was like, oh my gosh, can't believe they got Walker Kessler. He's absolutely awesome. Defensive anchor, all that kind of stuff. And now he's playing Summer League for the Jazz after his second year. Avoid the sophomore slump. He's definitely set up better than Walker Kessler was. He's got better teammates. I think they've got a better support system and all that. I think that Derek Lively is also more athletic and can switch better than Walker Kessler did. I think that he's less reliant on just straight up, rim protection. He can do other things defensively. So I think that Derek Lively is set up better than Walker Kessler is, going into his second year with the Jazz. But avoiding that sophomore slump is the first step to hitting his ceiling. And I think his ceiling is, we're talking about him for Defensive Player of the Year. At some point in his career. I don't think it'll be next season. I think it'll take a little bit. You got to learn how to defend. You got to learn how to be a good defender in the NBA. And that's why we don't see, except for Wembanyama, who is just broken all the stereotypes, and Chet too, I guess too, breaking all the molds where you're like, okay, this guy can all of a sudden be an elite defender. You've got to learn. You got to learn how to, timing in the NBA, different guys, defending them, all that. Can he get closer to his ceiling? I'm excited to see that. Daniel Gafford. I didn't have a lot of questions about Daniel Gafford. I thought on this for a while because you kind of know what Daniel Gafford is, and that's great. The Mavs need that. They desperately needed that. He would have been the best center on the Mavericks, not last season, but the season before that, with the Christian Wood, Dwight Powell, JaVale McGee experiment. What a terrible band name. But with Daniel Gafford, you know exactly what you're getting. You're getting energy. You're getting a dunker, like an elite lob catcher, dunker type guy. You're getting a guy that can hold his own defensively. So my question to him ended up being, how much better can he get defensively with an offseason and a training camp? Can he get better at some of the things that the Mavericks ask? It's tough to learn the Mavs defensive scheme. We talked about that with Christian Wood for like a whole season. Maybe that was an outlier. But can he learn the Mavs defensive scheme better? Did the playoff run help him learn that? Absolutely. I bet he learned more on that. And you look at the Mavs defensive on-off numbers in the playoffs. In the regular season, the Mavs were 3 points per 100 possessions better defensively when Gafford was on the floor. Great. They were playing better defensively when Gafford. Then in the playoffs, they were 5 points per 100 possessions worse when Gafford was on the floor than when he was off. That's a big swing. That's what, an 8-point swing? The Mavs were better In the regular season, when Gafford was on the floor, they were worse when Gafford was on the floor in the playoffs. So how much better can he get? Because then all of a sudden, if it's kind of even, and you go, okay, we've got this getting to on his way to elite defensively and lively, and then we've got this really solid, great defensive guy in Gafford. And all of a sudden, our defense is solid across the board, and you're not hemorrhaging points when the bench unit comes in. Or if Gafford starts again, the starting unit isn't hemorrhaging points because they were at some points last year. That's my big question for him. For Maxi Kleber, what does he have left? What can Maxi give them? There were times last season when you go, man, I see it. I see the Maxi Kleber that we loved in the 2022 playoffs. Hit a couple threes, playing some elite defense towards the end of the season. He still shot 35% from three, same he did last year. He just didn't hit that 40% he did in 2021 or, in the playoffs when he was just crushing it in 2022 where he shot 43%. He still shot 43% in the playoffs this season with the Mavericks because he had that one game where he went like 5 of 7. But what does he have left? What else can he bring? I think his role is going to be diminished a little bit. Not diminished, but like his roles, he's not going to play as many minutes as he did last year. He went down from 25 minutes the year before to 20 minutes in the regular season last year. And I think he'll be even farther down. He's injured a bunch. He played 37 games in 2023, 43 games last season. That's tough. So what does he have left? That's my question. We know what you're going to get when he plays, but when he comes back from injury, it's like, okay, now he's scared to shoot again. Where's he going to be with his shot? That's the big question for Maxi Kleber. But that question also does not kill the Mavericks anymore, which is great. If Maxi cannot be, peak Maxi, we're not panicking anymore. That's good. Because you got PJ Washington who can play some small ball 5 if they need to. They really haven't gone to that much. That should have been my question for PJ probably. Can he play 5? Can he play that small ball 5? They've got, Lively and Gafford that can play 48 minutes if you need to. You got Dwight Powell who can be a third string center, so you don't need Maxi to fill in on any of those roles, really. Najee Marshall can be a 4, so you got those spots filled. You don't need Maxi, but if you can get the Maxi that the Mavs had in the 2022 run at the end of last season, if you can get him in those spurts, it's a really good player still. Good role player. Last couple. Dante Exum. What the hell happened in the playoffs? Like, really? Can he go back to what he was in the regular season for the Mavericks? Because that was a good player. That was a player that we were all high on, which is one of the reasons why it made the playoffs so confounding, where we just went, hold on, what happened to this guy? He was so dependable. He didn't turn the ball over. He made some extra plays. He can play solid defense, and he was 50% from 3. He legitimately won the Mavericks 4 or 5 games last season. And if he didn't play, they didn't win those games. They probably wouldn't make the playoffs. Crazy. Can he get back to where he was? That's the question for Dante Exum. He's playing pretty well for Australia right now. You love to see that. So what can he do? Jaden Hardy, last kind of rotation player here. Jaden Hardy, did the playoffs kickstart a leap for him? Can he jump to another level? Because we kind of saw him go down from the end of his rookie season. He was playing really well, shooting the ball really well, and then the regular season last year, his second year, he kind of did that sophomore slump. We didn't really see a step forward. The summer league for him was a little disappointing, where he didn't take a step forward as the point guard. Jared Dudley even said it was disappointing for him. And in the regular season, it was kind of bumpy here and there. But then all of a sudden, he plays a big role in the playoffs. A big for end of the bench guy. And does that kickstart anything? Did that unlock anything for him? Did working with Kyrie, does any of that take him to another level? He's going to have the opportunity if they don't sign a Dinwiddie, if they don't sign a Dennis Smith Jr., if Dante Exum's role is limited because the Mavs need to invest in their future. There's a big thing that I've been saying for a little while is you got to invest in the future. Play Hardy during the regular season, even when it hurts sometimes. Play him and get him ready so that he's ready for those playoff minutes. Turns out he didn't need it. For Dwight Powell, how many times can one man get hit in the face? That's my question for Dwight Powell. Sorry, Dwight. That's what I got for it. You know what he's going to be. Third string center. He's now in his perfect role. Great. Come in, energy. Can start in a pinch if both guys are out for whatever reason. Sure. Omax, the question is the same question from Summer League. What else can you show? How is his three-point shot looking? What else can he show on offense? Can he slow the game down? Still the big question for Omax. Can he slow the game down? And then AJ Lawson, what else can he show in Summer League? Because I think he's holding on to his roster spot pretty tightly right now. And we'll see if, Melvin Ajinça steps in there. We'll see if Markieff Morris, Dinwiddie, Dennis Smith Jr., if any one of those All of a sudden you go, all right, we need 2 roster spots. All right, it could be AJ Lawson. So, but that's what I got. There you go. Those are my big questions for every player. Let me know in the comment section, what's your big question for every player or just one player, or answer some of the ones that I said. We'll be back tomorrow, me and Slightly, talking about the Mavs Summer League game or talking about anything else because it wasn't interesting. We'll talk about all that and more tomorrow. Guys, thanks for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.